Hi everyone, welcome back to Designer Heroes Forge. Today we're going to be showing you how to paint a canoptic Wraith of the Nihilakh Dynasty up to battle ready. To begin with, we're going to be painting the silver details with lead belcher. The silver details will be the blades on the top two claws, the neck, the gun, and the underside of the entire miniature including the tail. Optionally, you can leave the blade on the tail and paint that with the glow effect later on, much like I've done with this example here. As I've done with this one, I've painted it with the glow effect. So, we'll cut back once the lead belcher is done, and then we'll go through the next step. With the silver details now done, we can move on to the brass details. You can see I've painted a few extra areas that I didn't mention literally. These are all optional areas to paint. But just so you know where they are, I'm going to run through all the silver details. So you can see the entire underside of the miniature has been painted, except for the orbs and the central spine brackets here. These are going to be painted with the brass details, and these will be painted with the glow effect. The connection points for these smaller limbs at the back have also been painted in silver, as well as the blades here, the face, the bracket holding the orb at the top on, and the ridges on the neck. It's quite hard to show them on camera to get to them. For the gun, I've painted the cable at the back, the central body, the two pieces along the top, and then the little blades on the front. You can just about see that they're silver. So this done, we're now going to apply Balthasar Gold to all the central limbs, so those being all these little legs. We're then going to also apply it to the other half of the face, followed by the spine protectors here, and the spine along here as well. You can also optionally paint these in, which I will be doing, the little spikes along the tail that run right round. The same goes for the smaller little ridges there. Leave the orbs to be painted with the glow effect. So we'll cut back once all that's done, and then we'll move on to the blue. Brass details now painted, we can move on to painting the armour details with Stetragon Scale Green. These details are going to be the armour plates along the back of the miniature, going from the top one to the bottom one. Take care to avoid the brass details on the spine and in these recessed areas, as these will obviously need to remain the brass. However, if you do make any mistakes, just go back and tidy up before moving on to the next stage. We're going to cut back once the blue details are done, and then we'll move on to our washes. With the blue details now done, we can move on to our first wash, that being non-oil on all the silver details. We'll cut back once this is done, and then we'll move on to the next step. With the non-oil now applied, we can move on to Agrax Earthshade on the Balthasar Gold areas. However, if you do not have Agrax Earthshade, you could also use Reichlin Flesh Shade, as it will give a similar effect in colour to what we want. This will apply across the entire range for my method of doing the Nihilakh Dynasty, and hence why I bring it up in every video, just in case you're coming for a specific model. So we'll cut back once that's done, and then we'll move on to the last shade. With the Agrax Earthshade now applied, we can move on to our final shade using Drakenhof Nightshade on the blue armour panels. Briefly before we do that, I'm going to cover an optional stage which requires the use of Hexray Flame to create a slight green glow effect on the tail of the Wraith. Here's an example of what that looks like. As you can see, in the deepest recesses and on some flatter areas, it's given a slight green tint. This gives the effect that the energy flow that we've got from the weapons, the eyes and the orbs on the back is flowing right through the Wraith. I won't be covering it in this video tutorial, as it's quite a simple method of collecting the Hexray Flame on your brush, running it along the tail and simply avoiding any pooling. Should you find any, just spread it about so that you don't get any, and if you find it pooling too heavily in some areas, just go back over with some lead belcher and reshade it. We'll cut back once the Drakenhof Nightshade is applied and move on to the Grey Seer on all of the orbs and any other areas we want to have a glow effect. With the Drakenhof Nightshade now applied, we can move on to applying Grey Seer to any areas that require the glow effect. The key areas for these being any power nodes, such as the three large ones on the back and the one above the Wraith's head, the eyes, and the small power nodes along the tail. Optionally, you can apply this to the very small power nodes located at the ball joints for the legs, But as I said, this is an entirely optional area to apply it to, and will not affect the final result of the miniature if you do not apply it there. We'll cut back once the grey sear has been applied, and then we'll move on to our final stage of quickly dry brushing the mud applied to the base to finish off the battle ready look. With the grey sear applied, we're just about done here. All we're going to do is apply some Tyrant Skull to the base using a dry brush. Now what you want to do for this is get a bit of the Tyrant Skull onto your brush and wipe off most of it on a piece of kitchen towel or blue roll, something of the sort, until you've not got much left on there at all. All you're going to do is dry brush it onto the base. Obviously it's quite hard to do with a model like the Wraiths, as they take up most of it, but you just want to catch some of these raised areas. And I've put my brush a bit further into the pot so I can get it on the flat end of this, so I can drag it through like this, and you can see it's catching on all the detail. I'm going to do this right the way around the miniature, and then our model will be battle ready. So cutting away, I'll just show you finishing this off, and we can end the video there. Obviously you don't want to be too extreme with this, otherwise you will end up with streaks like we've got here, where it's just catching along the flat areas and not catching any higher up details. Like there's another one there. Obviously they're no big problem, but a lot of it doesn't look very nice and tidy. So you want to get as close up to the miniature as you can. What I normally like to do is apply a bit, especially with the Wraith, is apply a bit of the Surlyn Mud or Surlyn Battle Mire in this case onto the tail of the Wraith, maybe overlapping here and up on the sides of this bit, so that I don't have to worry about trying to get right up under it. I can just go straight over the dry brushing. Anyways, at that stage our Wraith is now battle ready, and would be perfectly fine to play on the tabletop at this standard. Of course you could also do the glow effect at this stage and just leave it there. However, if you wish to see the parade ready standard for this model, please see the next video, simply titled Parade Ready Necron Wraith Nihilakh Dynasty. Hope you've enjoyed this video at all, and I hope it helps you bring your Wraith up to a battle ready standard. Thanks for watching.